listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
Energy is love.
The Energy is the Love podcast.
The Energy is Love podcast.
Energy is love.
The Energy is Love podcast.
The podcast for the universe.
Okay.
The Energy is Love
Yeah.
podcast.
All right.
Yeah, fuck babe, I'm sorry is a great way to start the podcast.
Well, I was going to start it off with I got a sneak peek on how to communicate with the wild teenagers. I learned their language a little bit today, so
What was,
that's how I was going to start off.
yeah,
It's pretty ridiculous.
what
but
happened?
now I've been using it. Like, I learned how to use it correctly today in their form of communication.
Their,
I don't know how to do it without making it a lump.
their special language.
How do you do it where it doesn't lump?
Well, you don't put so much in.
You put a ton in. I put a ton in because
Just
you
a dash
do.
will do ya.
I do it. Well, here, this is a dash.
Mm-mm. I'm already pot committed with the lump. It's all good. For those of you just listening, we spice up our Michelob Ultras with a little bit of lime salt.
He usually
And,
puts a lot in.
yeah.
So I put a lot in for him.
Yeah, it was just a dash this time. A little bit more than a dash.
Got a little pucker face going on.
Yes, I did. I'm sorry. I got all sorts of flustered right before we started. Before we hit record, I didn't lose my shit. I didn't freak out, but I got upset and I got frustrated and shut down. And I'm nervous to record. I'm anxious.
Oh, why?
I have a variety of reasons why. I'm also anxious about recording right now in this exact moment in time. I'm paranoid that the light is going to fade again, and then we're going to have some sort of not well lit episode.
Okay. Should we make it a short one then?
No,
Okay.
no, we just get to go with the mother hug and fucking flow, and
I'm good with that.
do exactly whatever happens.
All right.
So it doesn't really matter. But I am sorry.
You're okay.
I know, but it sucks. Is that you vibrating?
I don't think so. I thought I had my vibrator off. It's you.
Yeah, it's definitely me vibrating.
He still has
Shocker.
his vibrator on.
Surprise!
It is,
surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, that mine is still vibrating. So,
It's okay.
anywho, here we are,
Mine gets a little
episode
sensitive, so
213.
I turn it off.
I was thinking today,
He didn't get it.
I am super distracted, babe. I'm very, very sorry.
You were
Are
thinking
you-
today?
Okay with a serious episode?
I'm ready.
What the fuck was that?
I put on my serious face.
I'm sweating. No, I was thinking today about
Serious episode, okay.
what to talk about on today's episode, and I definitely need to touch base. What is?
I took a drink.
No. Getting some feedback.
It wasn't. It was the beer. Oh, I thought it was. I thought it was the bubbles. Let's try it again.
Hold on. Be quiet. Stop it. It's not the fucking sound. It's totally the phone. Okay.
Do you want
Phone goes in my pocket.
to put it at the edge of the table?
No, I don't. I want to hurry up and rush through this episode and get done with it.
All right, let's do that.
I fasted last week. If you listened to last week's episode, I mentioned that I was in the midst of a fast, and it went well.
Yeah, you
62 hours, 2.5 days.
did good.
Yeah. It was, the most that I have gone, the longest I have gone in recent times. I don't remember a time when I've gone longer. I'm sure there's probably a time in the past, but it felt good. I felt like I could have gone longer, but that's okay. I did what I did, and I'm excited. I told you at the time, too, whether I talked about it last week, but it was in conjunction with the full moon.
Yes.
So I'm just going to do that.
Oh, every full moon you're going to fast?
Yeah.
What could go wrong? That's a good idea. I'll make sure I get my period every full moon. Let's put these two together.
Let's make it happen.
All
I
right.
don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, there's definitely no hangry. I think we should do fasting menstruation and new electronics every full moon.
Yeah?
Yes.
Is that what's happened this full moon?
Well, kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I liked it. It went well. I felt
You
strong.
did good. You did really good.
After the first day, day one, first day and a half of fighting back some of the hunger pains and just letting go into it, it felt good. It was surprisingly mentally more challenging than I was used to. Usually I can go a day and a half without any problems, but then kind of going for that second day, it just got harder mentally. And so much of it was trying to listen to my body in a different way than I ever have before and trying to let go into the process like I never have before. And I mean, I guess I probably did that to some extent, maybe 60%, 70% as far as kind of what I had intended or what I wanted to. But that whole idea of being able to let go into the simple process of just not eating was something that very much appealed to me, and it seemed like it was very important at the time for me to do, and I'm glad that I did it.
Cool.
And I think it's going to be a beneficial thing. That's my intention, right? Every full moon, so once a month,
Work on
once a moon
releasing.
cycle.
Purge.
Just
Not
letting
purge,
go.
but yeah.
Yeah,
Go.
just
All right.
work on letting go and
Pretty cool.
fasting during that time period. So I'm excited. I had a couple of, it's funny, 2 of my cousins reached out and asked me about it.
Oh, yeah?
And yeah, they had some questions about it and whatnot. So that was kind of fun.
That's way cool.
Mm-hmm. I have been thinking about this podcast, this one that we do, and I was thinking about how much this year, specifically to some extent, I have just been sitting back and letting you do all the heavy lifting. I have been sitting back and letting you share all the most vulnerable parts of you. And I've been supportive, obviously, and I've been here along the way. But I feel like I haven't done a good job doing the same thing. I haven't been doing, I feel, as good and as strong at it as you have. I'm sure you would argue differently. I'm sure you would, do nothing but try to make me feel better. And I don't feel bad right now in this moment, but I just have been, I was thinking about it today, and I'm like, there is so much stuff that I'm scared to talk about on this podcast, and also just so much stuff that I'm scared to talk about at all. I thought you were like getting up and leaving.
That's it. Gonna break out the big guns. I'm out. No, I wanted to be up for what is about to come out.
Yeah, I don't know.
I did not have my mic set for a serious episode. Now I'm ready.
Yeah, it was set up as a silly episode.
I was ready for the silly.
Well,
I'm very happy that this is where it's going, though.
yeah, we'll see. We'll see if you're still happy when we're all done.
That feels like a threat.
It's very much.
Like,
We'll see. You just wait,
all
Stephanie.
right. I've got.
No, I've been thinking about, what was it, like a week and a half ago, you helped me through this experience of letting go of something very, very powerful and very, very strong to me. And I'm going to do the best that I can to retell the experience and share the experience so that people have some context for all these kind of different things. But it stems from, it's not even just from IFS, but IFS is internal family systems. It's a form of therapy that was, I don't even remember the doctor's name, the guy that founded it, but it's been around for a long time. And my good friend John Sturpey turned me on to it. And I really like the way that it helps me process through some difficult things. It helps me process through some of my shit and some of my trauma and some of my story in a way that is kind of more manageable and easier to understand and to learn from. And I won't go into trying to explain IFS, but I mean, at the basic, just the most generic understanding of it, it's we all have different pieces and parts of ourselves, and you learn how to communicate directly with those pieces and with those parts, and kind of talk to and flesh out those parts and communicate to those parts and learn about those parts of yourself that have been, there for however long. And I have a very specific part that I'm very familiar with, and I don't have a name. I don't have like a title for him. I don't have anything other than just a visual of what he is. And the visual is of Leonidas in 300. So if you've never seen that movie, it's a great movie that was adapted to film by Zack Snyder. Came out quite a few years ago, but it highlights the I don't even remember. It's not the Phoenicians. It's the. Do you even know? I can't even remember.
Sorry.
Yeah, some great army back in the day that basically held the line for quite some time against a larger opposing foe. And the main character in the show is Leonidas, and he's the leader of the army and everything like that. But the visual for me is very profound. It's the standing at the front, kind of being the tip of the spear, protecting everything behind you, always going into battle first, all these kind of descriptors. When I say I can relate to them so much, it's not that I've gone into war or battle in the literal sense, but I can just relate to the character and to the part inside of me that feels that strongly about things and feels like he has to protect everybody, including him, including Craig, right? This part of me even protects myself. And I feel like he's been around for a really, really long time. And it's just a well-defined piece for me. Anyways, you and I were doing our normal thing of like sitting at the kitchen table in the morning after we took Asher to school and drinking coffee, and then just having profound emotional, spiritual experiences that change our lives forever, right? Just a normal Tuesday morning here at our house. And I don't remember how we got to it or what happened, but essentially I started to go down into the space of like connecting with that part and trying to I felt like that part needed to shift and change in some way, shape, or form. And I don't even have like contextual words to describe why, but I just felt like that part needed to change. And I was incredibly resistant to it, and I was scared, and I was upset, and I was starting to get kind of angry with you, and kind of like, how would you describe it? Like,
I'm not describing it. You just have to keep going.
well, just the part of like, because there was a part where I was very resistant and was starting to get kind of, resistant to help and resistant to wanting to do anything or wanting to process anything. And I was able to slow down, and you did a beautiful job of kind of holding space for me and helping me in that space. And then I just went like super internal into the space of like, it's almost like I felt like I met that part of myself. And he was very clearly like, he had his role that he was doing, and he was protecting me, and he had to protect you, and he had to protect the world, and he had to protect our family, and he had to do all of these different things. And I just started to have a conversation with him and started to ask him questions like, I don't even remember some of the questions that I asked him, but it was just this conversation with him about what he's doing, why he's doing it, what's the purpose of what he does, what does it feel like, all these kind of different things. And it was leading me, and I could feel that it was like going to this place where I have a visual of that person, that part of myself, in a very like, the guy, the part of myself, because he is a warrior, because he is somebody that stands at the forefront of the army and goes first into the darkness, he's got a sword and he's got a shield. And it's like, that's what he uses, and that's the two things that he holds on to the most, and that's the thing that he kind of, has to do his job and to protect everything. And I kept getting to this point where I'm like, why don't you just lay down your sword? Like, why don't you just lay down your sword? And I kept thinking it, and I kept kind of like asking him that question. And every time it was like, yeah, laughter, like, I can't do that. That's not going to happen. Yeah, if I lay down my sword, everybody dies. If I lay down my sword, I don't have the ability to, do my job. You don't want me to lay down my sword. Trust me, you're not going to like the results, right? Because then everything that I'm holding back is going to come, and all these kind of different things. And it's just like, it got to the point where it was like, okay, I'll lay down my sword, but then I'll pick up the axe, or I'll pick up a spear, or maybe I'll just put my sword in the sheath, and it'll be there when I need it again, because undoubtedly at some point I'm going to need it again. And it was this whole thing of like trying to get to the point where he could lay down his sword, because I felt so much of just like, it was so clear to me how much I have fought my entire life and how much I have resisted things, and not resisted in the sense of like not allowing things to come into my life, even though that's definitely a part of it, but like resisted against just life. Like, I was thinking back to the time as I was going through this process, I was thinking back to when I was little and I would fight with my brothers, and how much of it was like physical fighting, but then also how much of me was like always on edge and ready to fight. Like, there's a level of resistance that is in place at all times in order to defend and protect from whatever may come next. And that's very literal in some extent, or some sense, because, I grew up with two older brothers, and we were all very, very physically violent with each other. But then it also kind of more in the metaphorical sense of just meeting life that way, meeting everything that way, with that level of resistance. And I don't think resistance is quite the right word to describe what I'm talking about, but it means something to me when I use it. Does that make sense? So the word fits perfectly in my head. So when I talk about resistance and not wanting to be resistant and not wanting resistance to build up in my body, it means something very specific to me, and I get it. But I was like, he has to let go. Like, I want that part of myself to let go, because there isn't a need anymore for any of this stuff. I don't need to defend myself from anything. I'm not in risk of danger. There's no physical violence that I'm exposed to. I don't have any of these scary things that happen in my life anymore that I have to be prepared for. And on top of it, I'm at like the most peaceful, calm, relaxed point in my life that I've ever been before. But yet I still have resistance, and I still have this tension. So eventually, after going through all these different questions with this guy and with these parts, I had this moment of silence in all of this stuff. Like, my brain, because all of this was really taking place inside of my head and inside of this energetic space, in a sense, right? It's not like you weren't asking me any questions. I wasn't engaged in any form of conversation other than internally within myself and this part. And everything kind of went quiet, and I could hear the wind blowing outside. We had the windows open, and I could hear the wind blowing outside through the trees and through the leaves and things like that. And it sounded like the ocean. And suddenly I pictured this part of myself standing on the beach, in that part of the beach where your feet are getting wet when the surf comes in, when the waves roll in and the tide rolls in, and then the tide rolls back out. But it's only your ankles. It's like barely enough to, cover up your ankles. And then the tide rolls back out, and you can see your feet again sunken down into the sand, and the sand dries out a little bit, and then the tide rolls back in, and just that very brief part of the beach right there. And I could see him standing there facing out into the ocean and listening to the waves roll in, holding the sword in his hand. And the tide rolled in and came up over his feet and across his ankles. And he dropped his sword into the water and into the ocean. And when the tide rolled away, the sword was gone. And he was just standing there without anything. And it was such a beautiful moment for me of the realization that I no longer have to fight to move through life. I no longer have to show up with resistance and with just fight in me. I don't have to fight anymore. And it's not a giving up feeling. It's not a quitting. It's none of that. It's just this, it's like this super, it's really hard to even explain, but it's just suddenly realizing that I can let go of everything. And I don't have to fight anymore. And I can just move through life with this open heart. And I pictured this guy moving through life and moving through his life, this part of myself, and the different experiences and things like that, that he would normally have his sword and use his sword. And now he was just kind of walking with his hands down and his palms open and his heart opened up and just moving through those same experiences. So it was very profound. And I've been trying to hold on to it since it's happened. And it's like anything else where it starts to fade after a while and it starts to go. But then I get reminders like with the fasting last week of like, just let go. Just let go. Food's not that important, especially where I'm at in my life right now. Like, food might be more important at some point in my life, but right now it's like I can go 2.5 days without eating any food and I'm perfectly fine. And I can just let go of the resistance and the frustration and the internal dialogue of hunger and all these kind of different things. But it's also, it's leaching. Leaching is a bad word. That makes it sound bad. It's also spreading outwards into other things and into you and I's relationship and into the ways that I try to parent and the ways that I try to, you're raising your eyebrows.
No, I'm listening.
You're like, when the fuck are we going to see this?
Nope. Nope. Just keep going.
But it's something that is very profound for me, and I've told you that. Mm-hmm. And we've talked a great deal about it to some extent. And it's something that's important. I'm going to continue to do it. I'm just going to continue to let go when I feel that resistance and when I feel that thing inside of me that is like, oh, it's time to fight. And it's not even like, put my guard up and get ready to start fighting. It's just this slightest sensation in my body where I feel resistance and it's time to argue or try to get my point across or all these kind of like little nuanced things. And I'm trying to really slow down and stay in my body enough to recognize what is happening as the like somatic precursor inside of my body before all of these other things can fully take shape and kind of start. Because I want to start shifting all of them to the point where I can just let them go. Because I just am ready to move into this next phase of my life where I don't have to fight everything and be so resistant to the experiences of life. Because we have so many beautiful things. You and I have such a beautiful life and so many wonderful, amazing things that are coming. I just want to let go and let them come. Let them in. I am nervous. Continue to talk now. Or say something, please. Anything.
Hi.
Hi, Stephanie. This episode is brought to you by Love Good Fats. Yeah. Go ahead.
Still waiting for Michelob, like dudes.
Yeah, Michelob Ultra, if you want to sponsor the podcast, reach out.
We clearly...
Hit us up. We have bought enough Michelob Ultra in the year 2020 to put one of your kids through college, that's for sure.
That's funny. I'm glad you're ready for all those things. I'm glad you're ready to let go. You're ready to tap into you. That's pretty cool.
Do you have any questions? You don't have any questions at all?
What questions should I have?
I don't know.
Are you resistant to me not having questions?
No, I just feel silly is all.
Oh, why?
Because I talk about something that is strange and esoteric in nature that's hard to articulate and explain on. Do you know what I mean? And I know you have an understanding of what it is and what the experience was like because you were sitting there with me, but you
I was
also
doing my own thing in that space while you were having your thing. I was on the outskirts, so yeah.
Yeah. So I just feel silly.
Don't feel silly.
Um,
Or do. Whatever. I don't think you need to. It's a personal choice.
Yeah.
I think you're okay.
So that's one part of the last few weeks. And today, as I was thinking about what we're going to talk about on this podcast today, I was thinking about where am I not just holding back, but where am I meeting that resistance in regards to things that I want to talk about?
Okay. What'd you come up with? Chug-a-lug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think we have enough beer.
There's a few more under the table.
You, like I said, you have done a wonderful job, Steph, this year of
Thank you.
really sharing amazing things on this show and being vulnerable and open.
Thank
and
you.
that's powerful, and I think that's important.
Cool.
Yeah, that's cool. It's something that I've been very grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful to sit here with you as you do that. It's so scary, Steph. I don't want to talk about stuff because I have so much shame.
Yeah.
And it's the stuff that brings me the most shame.
Yeah.
And it's also stuff that I'm embarrassed about and I don't like discussing, even though to some extent I've owned it and made peace with it and moved on. It still doesn't change the shame that I feel.
I get that.
Yeah. So, do you have a sense of what I'm talking about?
I feel like I do.
Are you okay if we talk about it?
You can talk about whatever you want.
Well, yeah, but it's not just my fucking life.
Well, you're right. It's not.
It's not just my fucking story.
You're right. It's not. There's also a chance that I don't know what you're talking about, that I think it's one thing, you're going to say another thing, and I'm going to be like, what the fuck? But you know what? I don't know. We'll figure it out.
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery. There's also the safety of this episode never has to go out.
Yeah, but that's never a thing, obviously.
I know. It always goes out.
Yeah.
But
It always
that's
goes out.
still an option. This isn't live.
Yeah.
There's still that option. If you guys are hearing this part, you know you're about to get what's coming next. But
Well, it's not a big deal, except to me. Like, that's the thing is like...
Are you sure?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's like anything else. When people start talking about things that they have a lot of shame over, there's people that hear it and listen and connect, and then there's people that are like, yeah, that's not a big deal. Like, I got a bigger shame list than that. But it's important, I think, for people to own their shame, talk about their shame, experience their shame, feel the emotions that come up with the shame, process their shame. Otherwise, it just fucking screws everything up. Has a tendency to fuck your life over. So, some of this stuff throughout my entire life, dating back as long as I can remember that I've had shame around, is sex. And it's not just the act of sex with another person. It's masturbation, it's pornography, it's pretty much anything and everything that could fall under the umbrella of sex. It's always been a space that...
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not alone.
You're not alone. Keep going.
But it's just a shame-ridden minefield of stuff. And the ways that that has played out in my life has been like... I'm trying to think of early ways that it would have kind of manifested and played out. I lacked confidence with my body. I lacked confidence with, like, just the simple acts of, like, physical contact with people, with girls and things like that when I was in high school, whether it be like holding hands or kissing. I think to some extent it was obviously it's a normal thing to be nervous and stuff like that. And I don't think it was much more than some of those normal, typical nerves. But, I was just always very self-conscious about all of it and hesitant to have sex and hesitant to do anything, and always felt the need to, like, make up for what I felt like I was lacking, because I never felt like I not only was good enough at sex or something like that, but just was never really good enough in general. And one of the first serious girlfriends that I had, and serious is definitely not
Serious for high school?
well, it wasn't even in high school.
Oh, junior high. Elementary.
No.
Preschool.
No, graduated.
Did you get married? Preschool.
No, when I graduated high school, I moved in with this girl in Minnesota, and that's a whole other podcast and a whole other episode if it ever happens. It's not that big of a story, but I don't want to go down the rabbit hole and explain all of it, but that was kind of like my first real relationship.
Yeah.
She's the woman that I lost my virginity to.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't lose it, obviously. I didn't misplace it, but she's the one that I had sex with for the first time when I was 18. And,
yeah, why did they say that? I think you hit a really good point. Lost your virginity to. That's some wordplay right there that I've never hit before. That's something that you don't want to lose. You hold on to. There's shame with it. And if you lose it, then you're less valuable because you don't have that special thing.
You only lose it once.
Wow.
But that was a very short-lived relationship. I moved to Minnesota to live with her, and we lived together, and I was there for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months, before I started cheating on her with some other girl who I met at work. I worked in a casino that was on an Indian reservation. And so it wasn't long before I started this other. Relationships make it sound like it was more, I guess that's a perfectly fine word, until I started this other relationship with this other girl and then broke it off with the first girl. And that was the beginning of relationships for me to a certain extent. And also that was the beginning of me cheating during relationships. And I was married, obviously, before you and I met, to my first wife. And I got married when I was 20 years old. And I cheated on her after about, I think it was like 6 or 7 years of marriage or something like that.
Oh, that long?
I don't remember exactly.
Wow.
It's cool. It's okay. It's okay. You can.
You went from 1
say
month.
all the wrong words.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's okay.
That wasn't. Yeah.
But that was a really difficult time period in my life. I had several affairs with multiple women, and it eventually led to the end of that marriage, and that's what caused us to get divorced. And it's something that, like, set into motion a massive transition for my life, but also some of the darkest kind of time periods. Like, it would have been the Dark Ages, all kind of got triggered and started during that time period. And I went down very dark rabbit holes of depression and drinking too much and all sorts of different things, on top of, like, a lot of frivolous sexual interaction with. Frivolous seems like the appropriate word, right? I don't know what else would be a better word.
I think it works.
With other women and things like that. And just very not safe behavior across the board in pretty much every way, shape, or form that you can think of. Eventually, I started to come out of that space, started to kind of get my life together to some extent. And her and I actually got together again, got remarried again, and then got divorced a second time shortly after that. And all during this time period, I was trying to like still be a dad, still try to like have a job, still try to, like everybody else, right? I was still trying to live and do everything else, but I was dealing with so much shame and guilt and anger towards myself that was just fucking so debilitating and disgusting and hard to deal with. And when you and I met, we started dating and we started our relationship and everything like that. And it was shortly into our relationship. Well, no, it would have been a few years, right? 2 years or something like that. 2 or 3 years.
Who knows?
I don't remember time frames. Anyways, it wasn't long into our relationship until I cheated on you and had a relationship, a very short-term relationship with another woman that wasn't sexual, but it was I crossed lines when it came to like physical contact with her and emotional connection, and I mean literally just lying to you about shit that was massively inappropriate. And later on down the road, after we got through that experience, there's a part of my shame, like it's almost like easier to talk about, even though it's not easy at all. It's almost easier to talk about having affairs with actual women than it is to talk about some of the other stuff that I would do in between stuff, like in between, not just affairs, but like kind of the in-between spaces of life when I would get depressed or when I would get lost. Makes it sound like it's an excuse. None of these things are excuses for my actions and behaviors. It's just literally me being able to express and talk about the shame that I've experienced over the course of my life. But I would do things like go to strip clubs and seek out some of those other like fringe sexual experiences, like what do they call them? It's like not hiring somebody, but it's like going to somebody for a like a body rub in quotation marks. And the intention is that it's going to have some sort of sexual act involved, whether it be, I mean, drop my cards because obviously I'm uncomfortable. Anyways, I was doing those things kind of sporadically throughout all of this time period over the course of my life. And then after you and I got through dealing with and processing through that affair that I had with that woman at the kind of towards the beginning of our relationship, we had a period of time where things were going pretty good for the most part. But I think I had a couple of those experiences where I went out and had some sort of paid experience with some woman that I found online or something.
Okay, can I call you out on something?
You can call me out on anything.
Are you going to be vulnerable or not?
Yes.
Because you think you had a couple. Or are you going to talk about it, or are you going to sugarcoat it?
Well, sugarcoating was last week's episode.
Okay.
I don't have specifics as far as times or dates or, do you know what I mean? So that's why it's hard for me to say it was 2 times or 3 times or 4 times.
You told me 9.
9?
You told me 9.
I'm not talking about, I'm talking about before I started working and traveling for work.
Oh. I thought oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
No.
So there's more here. Okay.
No, you know about this. This isn't something that we haven't talked about before.
Okay.
I know I've told you about this before.
Now I know where we're at. Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, there was a handful of those experiences where I would pay somebody for a sexual gratification at the end of whatever exchange took place. And then I started working and traveling for work, which I traveled all over the country, and I traveled up into Canada, and I just traveled everywhere. And I started to seek out those kind of exchanges and those kind of experiences when I was on the road traveling. And that meant that, like, wherever I was, I would almost kind of be completely preoccupied with trying to figure out how to find that type of experience, that type of, I wasn't finding prostitutes, although I did sleep with 2 prostitutes, or I had sex with 2 prostitutes. It wasn't the intention to just find prostitutes to have sex with. It was like the escorts that would, you know, I don't have to elaborate. People know what the fuck I'm talking about, unless you feel like I need to be specific. What do you think?
It's your show. I already gave my part of it, and you were getting to it, and I got in the way. So I think you should just keep saying what you feel.
Well, I feel like shit right now, and I feel like this is fucking stupid, and I don't know why the fuck I wasted time talking about any of this, but this is stuff that is hard for me to discuss, and this is stuff that I have wanted to talk about on the podcast for a very, 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 very long time.
And you're doing it.
And have always been too afraid to talk about it. So, yeah, I started traveling for several years for work, and was doing it on a pretty regular basis when I would be out traveling. And it lasted for about 2 years. And over the course of that 2 years, it was, what did you say, 9 times? I'd have to like literally go into my head and try to think about the different experiences to really come up with a number. And the number doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And I don't know what it was. I just know at the time I was like, I needed specifics because I couldn't take any more surprises. So whether it's real, that's where it was or not.
Yeah.
I was just kind of, that was my process, as I needed to know.
Yeah. And first off, like, everything that I'm ashamed about, everything that I have shame about of these actions and these behaviors in the past, the reason I have shame for them is because they were hidden, because I didn't tell you about them, because they were lies that I kept. They were things that I was doing that was outside of not just our relationship and outside of what we have talked about and communicated about, but I'm not shaming the acts themselves, or like I'm talking about in the general sense of people, right? If there's 2 consenting adults out there in the world and, you know, they choose to do this with their life, I'm not shaming the act of sexual anything. What everybody wants to do is up to them. The part that I'm ashamed about, and the part that I have an issue with, and the part that has fucked me up all these years, is the fact that I knew it wasn't something that you would be okay with. I knew that it was an issue. It wasn't like
in our agreements.
It wasn't, not just in our agreements.
I don't know what to say, right?
Well, it's like, that's the part that sucks, right? And that's the part that just really, really fucked me up over the years. And during all of this, it had a ability, what it did was it just deteriorated and started this slow decay of our relationship because of all the things that I was hiding, and the things that I wasn't sharing with you, and the things that I wasn't being truthful about, and the ways that I was covering things up, and the ways that I was coming home and behaving and acting and all these kind of different things.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I was getting very scared that you and I were going to end up getting divorced. I was getting very scared that my life was falling apart even more so than it ever had before. And I was just so lost. I was so lost. And it was so fucking scary and shitty and terrible. And I didn't know what to do about any of it. And and then everything changed. And in January of 2017, I told you about all of it. And we talked about all of it. And I shared with you everything that I had been doing and that I had done. Somebody's hacking away at something. Yeah. And ever since that day, ever since that time, you and I have been slowly trying to figure out who the fuck's...
It doesn't matter.
That's a kid.
Yeah.
These are the kids next door. That's funny. Anyways.
They're not throwing peaches or rocks at us this time.
Ever since then, you and I have been putting our relationship back together. And the truth is, it's not even putting our relationship back together. Mm-hmm. It's almost like we started our relationship then. And we have been building our relationship. It's like that was when you and I almost in a sense showed up and started the space of like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
And that's changed everything. I mean, that literally has changed my entire life. The act of talking to you about it and telling you and just letting it all be out in the open and talked about with you. In the amount of freedom that I felt and the immediate relief that took place and the continued relief of like, I mean, where we sit today, what do you...
I'm sorry, please. This is obviously causing me emotions.
Yes.
This is obviously stirring up things.
Yes.
I love you.
Yes.
This is not 2000 whatever.
Yeah.
It is actually 2000 whatever, but we're like, this is Mars retrograde. This is what it is literally supposed to do. And we are on the heels of Mercury.
Yeah.
So you're feeling it. I'm feeling it. I'm giving some physical reactions because I'm like, oh, that turns out that still kind of hurts. That's there. There's also another part of it that you haven't said yet. And there's another part of it that I have never said to you, but I'm going to share it with you in a little bit. So I'm having reactions, but I'm not trying to trigger you with my reactions. I'm doing my best to contain them, but I'm having reactions, but I'm loving you and supporting you through all of this. And I want you to keep talking. And I'm sorry for the parts that I can't contain.
It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to contain anything.
I'm trying really fucking hard.
Yeah.
And it's cold. I think.
What happened, I went on the Yellowstone expedition with Everyman in late summer of 2017.
And that was like a goodbye.
In your mind.
For me, I was sending you bon voyage.
Yeah, Stephanie thought that meant the end of our relationship, that I was going to come back from that and ask for a divorce.
I was releasing you to that, knowing that you were coming back, asking for a divorce. I did my part to make it happen that you could go, releasing you, knowing that that's where we ended.
Yeah.
Because I wanted you to find peace in yourself.
I did.
You did. It worked out way better than I thought.
Yeah, it worked out way better than I think I could have even imagined.
Yeah. I had no idea this was the journey of us.
Yeah. So that was a big
triggering
change point in my life. And it culminated in, I got back, that was at the end of August. And I got home in September. And we started I started a men's group in Salt Lake City that has been meeting since then every week. And so it started the space of me really diving deep into my emotions. It started the space of me really processing through my trauma. And the first layer of that trauma, even though it went really deep and it had way more things, and we're 3 years later now and I'm still processing through it. But the first part of that I had to go through was telling you all of this stuff and getting all of this stuff out and sharing all of it with you. And it took me a few months. Like I said, I got home in September, and it wasn't until January that I told you everything.
Yeah, this wasn't the first, I don't know how to say it. This wasn't the first round of confessions that you had.
Right. Yeah.
Of where, you would dump all this,
mm-hmm.
and then
things are
but
gonna
it's
be different.
you, but it's you.
Yeah.
And it'll be different, and then all of this. So when this one came around, I was like, what the fuck? I'm out.
Yeah, this was the biggest one, right?
Clearly, it took me a minute.
Yeah. It did.
It took me a minute. I was like, this is bullshit.
I feel like it was
done.
almost a month
Yeah.
before we actually almost were able to come back together and talk with any sort of connection.
Yeah.
But that's all my shame. I mean, that's not all my shame. I've got shame in regards to other things and stuff, but that's the biggest shame pile. Like, that's the big rock that has shame written on the front of it that I carry around with me. And over the years, and since being able to talk to you about it and get it all out, everything has changed and everything's been so incredibly different. I haven't done anything since then. I haven't had any things that I've kept from you, any lies that I've hidden. All of that behavior shifted and changed.
And now I believe you.
Yeah.
I didn't before, and before it wasn't true.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to start believing you. Obviously.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, everything's fine. You know, explosion. Everything's, you know, nothing's, and I'm like, I feel like this is happening. And it was like, no, you're making me feel bad. And, you know, deflecting it back on me.
Yeah.
And so much has changed now where it's like,
everything's changed.
yeah.
Our ability to...
Everything's changed.
Everything's changed.
Everything's changed.
So that's my shame. That's the stuff that I have been wanting to talk about on the podcast for a very, very long time, because I think it's important. If I think about it just from like the outside perspective of, you know, people hearing that and feeling like they're not alone and feeling like that, you know, maybe they have some similar experiences or all the same shit that we talk about sometimes. Is it's like the importance of having these conversations and people being able to hear these conversations is massively important. But that's the biggest one for me. And then everything else after that's pretty easy, even though it's not, you know, but everything after that is like kind of easy. And as far as like things to talk about, that's the thing that's hardest for me to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's still hard for me to understand. Like, it's honestly really hard for me to understand how you stayed with me.
Yeah.
I don't really truly understand how. And I'm grateful, beyond grateful, like eternally grateful for your ability to stay with me through all of it, and not just stay with me, but help me grow and evolve and be willing to go on this exciting adventure with me and with us, like you and me. So it's been amazing. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you and I are together. I'm so grateful that we can sit out in our backyard and drink beer and record a podcast. And I can talk about this shit that I hate about myself. And there's a part of me that is scared shitless and feels incredibly uncomfortable and wants to get up and walk away and not release this episode. And then there's another part of me that knows it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So you have some things that you wanted to say.
I'm chewing my lips over here. That's funny. I hate how like viscerally I feel emotions and how visible they are. I'm over here like, I'm fine. You know, it's, yeah. I don't know how I stayed either, Craig. There's like this part of me that is like, I could see somehow, whether it was through insanity, ignorance, stupidity, or this beautiful, loving knowing. I don't know. I could see more. I left you many times. I was sure. I was out many times. I was planning shit. You have no idea the level of like division that I had. I had so many plans many times. And then there was just these sparks. And there's like part of me that's right now, it's like for every woman listening to this that's going through this does not, like, this is uncommon. It is not your job to stick with it and endure it. And then one day love will come. if you feel that, then by all means, do what feels right for you. But don't feel like, oh, maybe I just need to take it more. Fuck that. Like, this is not a message to women to deal with shit.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. And this is not a message for men that if your woman really loves you, she'll stick through your fucking bullshit. Like, fuck off if that's what you heard. Fuck off if that's what you heard. No, don't do that. Obviously, there's still some things that I need to process through. Okay. This is not that. I love that we are unique, and we are unique in so many ways. And I love that the bullshit that I brought with my craziness and through my inability to connect and through my fear of what it is, what it means to be in a relationship. Like, my trauma has manifested in this relationship, and you've had to weed through that. And there's part of me that thinks maybe it was my lack of connection. And then I'm like, not going to do that, because if anything, I was overly coming out, and this is a history that you have had. This is not my fault.
No.
This is not the woman's fault. And it is your fault, but I'm not looking at men and saying it's not your fault. It's okay. Keep doing it. But hey, maybe you don't have to beat yourself up over this. Maybe you don't have to destroy yourself over this. Maybe there's something more that you need to dig in and look at. Maybe this doesn't have to be the thing that you say, well, you're just a fucking piece of shit. This is the way you are, and nothing's ever going to come of it. Like, hold up. Maybe there's more. Let's start looking at your past. Let's start looking at your history. Let's start looking at the way you feel inside and start to try and tap into that. Because I bet you there's more of you than what you can see. Or maybe there's not, but I think there is.
Yeah.
I have so many emotions, I don't know what to do. This kind of big that you felt comfortable enough to say this. This is scary because our kids don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't make this public.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I felt like it was not the jobs of our children's to bear this weight.
Yeah.
So it's big, but it's also, there's another part that you don't know that has been hard for me all these years, is to hear you, because you have talked about this. You haven't talked about me, but you've talked about your first relationship, which, by the way, if I ever get to meet that girl, like, she sounds fucking phenomenal. So if you ever happen to come across this, I think you're a rock star. He sees that you're like, can I say that? You're a nice lady. I want to meet you.
My first the Minnesota
Can
girl?
I say her? I can't say her name, but yeah, Minnesota girl.
Shout out to Jess.
Right? Jess in Minnesota, you can't find that. Like, apparently, like, from what I've heard. Anyways, not the point.
She's a sweet girl.
But you're a sweet girl. Like, I'm getting nervous. Obviously, I'm getting nervous. Okay, let me pull it back in. Hold on. You've been on other podcasts, and you've talked to me about when you've talked to other people, and you've always talked about your history of cheating and how bad you felt for cheating up until me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to listen to all of your remorse, and then nothing. You didn't give a fuck about me. And then I had to keep holding your secrets to keep your shame. So I heard how sorry you were, except for with me. And that just, like, got heavier and heavier. And I just kept, like, so the fact that now you're like, hey, you're included in, like, you matter, means a lot, because I've never got that. So I think that's why so many emotions are coming up, and why I feel, because I don't feel this way about it anymore.
Yeah.
This isn't how I feel anymore. Like, we've moved, we've grown too much. But the fact that now you're seeing me out loud instead of just in the privacy, or maybe a one-on-one conversation that you had recently with somebody where you included me in the mix, So I'm feeling this part that never got to really come out before, because I kept it a secret, you kept it a secret, and for years it's been a secret.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. So I'm having these feelings. I'm having these emotions.
I mean, that dynamic is something that I didn't realize, obviously. And from the perspective of Craig at that time, it was that was the shame that I couldn't talk about.
Yeah.
That was the shame that I couldn't deal with because it was like it was going on.
Yeah.
Still. So it was like.
Hasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, been a long time. I mean, 3 years, but that's.
Thank you for including me in. Thank you for acknowledging. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing your shame and giving my silence now a voice, because I've been really quiet. There's been a little bit of a share here. But I've been so careful. I've been so careful to not cause you any harm. I still haven't fucking let the name out of the other person. Like, I've been so careful to protect secrets. But you give my pain a voice, and that means a lot. Some shit I gotta fucking process now.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say.
I'm proud of you. I hope we can look at each other tonight and we don't do that, like walking in the house like, I love you. You good? Yeah, I'm good. You good? Okay, let's get that boy to bed.
I'm excited to lay in bed with you and snuggle.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you said, I mean, it's so long ago. We have come so far. We are 100% different people.
We are 100% different people
than we were when all of this took place.
Yes. I'm going to say 98 because right now I got some past that it's coming up for me to look at.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that sucks. So I'm having some very visceral reactions that. But 98, that's pretty good.
That is pretty good.
Fucking good.
I think we're pretty fucking awesome.
I think so too.
As always.
Yeah.
So, if this episode has affected you in any way, shape, or form, you're welcome. And as always, we would love to hear from you. You can reach out through the website. It's energyislovepodcast.com. Also hit us up on Facebook. If you follow either of us on Instagram, you can reach out there as well.
I hope you do.
I do too.
I really want to hear some things.
I'd like to hear some
Thoughts.
feedback, whether this is something that you can relate with in some way, shape, or form in your life. And it feels good to have it out in the sense now that we can talk about it not like on a regular basis. We're not going to fucking do a 10-episode series on this.
We're not.
But when it comes up, we'll be able to talk about it.
It's not something we have to skirt around.
Yeah. It's not something that we have to avoid in conversation now when we talk about this on the podcast. And that makes me happy. I like that.
Me too.
It seems silly, but go to lovegoodfats.com and buy yourself some delicious bars
what
that
is
are
it?
amazing.
It's the chocolatey. I think that's the
Coconut chocolate
that's
chip.
the coconut chocolate chip, but the chocolatey almond is my favorite.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. There's something about the sweetness of the almond. I just love almonds.
They're amazing.
They're all like in the freezer, and then it's really, it feels like you're going for a candy bar. It feels like you're like, this is not cheap, but it's not. It's good for you.
When you check out, enter Energy is Love, and you'll save some money. It's like 20% off your order, so it's pretty cool.
Love discounts, love sales, love good fats. Energy is love.
I love you so much, Steph. Thank you so much for everything. Not just a podcast, but everything. And the fact that we get to sit here 3 years later and record in our backyard is amazing. And I'm so grateful.
Thank you.